Happy New Year. And it is that time when we all agree as a human race that one year has ended and another one has begun. And it's kind of interesting that we are able to agree on something like that, which is kind of arbitrary if you think about it. And yet, regardless of religion or creed or political boundaries, we agree on all of this stuff. That on the last day of December, we flip the calendar and we begin the second quarter of the 21st century. I guess that is proof that human beings are able to agree on something, at least, which might be a bit heartening. In any case, it is also a time when we pause and we make our resolutions for what we're planning to do with ourselves in the next year. And it's been said by most people of wisdom that if you make a New Year's resolution, you've already lost, because you've got it in your head that you can start on the first day of the new year. At the stroke of midnight, you're going to be a new person. And the reality is, if it was important enough to you for you to really change, you probably would have already done it. So that's true. New Year's resolutions don't really count for much, because we're not really going to change at the stroke of midnight. If we wanted to change, we would have already made those changes. We would have made those commitments. And New Year isn't going to really change who we are. But sometimes it is healthy and valuable to take an opportunity to pause and to reflect. And New Year's certainly could be one of those times. So let's talk about it. I guess in terms of all of the things going on in the world, it's been a kind of an interesting week. We've had a airplane crash near Russia. We had a airplane crash in South Korea, both of which being notable because they were extremely lethal and killed a lot of people. And that was interesting. Perhaps a rather chaotic way to end 2024. And it's also perhaps a good example of how we always plan that we're going to make it a certain number of times around the sun. We think that we have time, and then sometimes we don't make it. And I guess we should take a moment to pause and remember those who haven't made it around to see another year. And we should also take a moment to remember that none of us are assured tomorrow, and none of us are assured any more than this present time that we have. So we should live our lives through that lens, understanding that it's not about the destination. It's not about getting a fixed thing that we have in our head we want to do done. It's about learning to appreciate the journey. And that's an important lesson to learn. I think a lot of people, as they get later into their life, older people, they start to understand that it's all about enjoying and serving every single day, having a meaningful life. It's not about what you're going to do in 20 years or something like that. It's about having a meaningful, joyous day today and being without any regrets. So anyways, we went through the beginning of the new year. I watched some live streams of the fireworks in Times Square and various other cities. Fireworks over Chicago, fireworks off the Space Needle in Seattle. And it's nice to see all of those celebrations kick off as the various time zones hit midnight. And then I went to bed and got my 5.5 hours of sleep before I got up to go to work again. Took half a day because it is a quiet day at the office, and then had some time to myself today, which was nice this afternoon and this evening. But not all things being nice, we also had what appear to be a couple of terrorist attacks hitting those places where people have celebrated. In New Orleans, we had somebody run through a crowd of people. We had a truck blow up outside of Trump Tower in Las Vegas, and remains to be seen exactly what caused that. But certainly, if you just use your imagination, it's not hard to conclude that potentially what we are seeing is an elevation of tense situations and conflict in the world, and that conflict might be beginning to make its way into our home country as well. So we will see what the new year brings. But certainly with all of the election stuff going on, and President Trump coming into office, and a lot of people on both sides of the fence that are probably tense for their own different reasons about the future, we aren't out of the woods. Indeed, we might see a lot of volatility in the coming year. And I think that everyone knows that. We've seen concerns about drone sightings. We've seen concerns about, lately, if you look around on the web, you'll see a lot of people worried about mysterious fog showing up mostly on the east coast of the United States. And that could just be because the weather's changing, but it's also perhaps a telling sign of the times that something as simple and seemingly innocuous as fog can make the public consciousness of the internet start to light up as people think maybe it's some sort of a government conspiracy. Maybe there's something nefarious going on. And I think everyone on both ends of the political spectrum has a certain degree of worry, a certain sense that maybe there's something simmering that's about to boil over in the world or in our country. And it all adds up to the fact that we maybe feel like the world is going to come to an end. But in the face of that, I think it's also important to realize that the reality is probably not so much that the world is going to end. It's more the possibility that your world will end. It's possible that you lose a loved one. It's possible that you lose a job. It's possible that you lose a sense of security or health, or you lose time in your life. You lose your youth. You lose your authority. And there's so many of these things that kind of keep us up chasing something, always worrying, and that's unavoidable. That even if the world keeps on turning, which it probably will, our lives will not be forever. Sisyphus was a man in mythology who pushed a boulder instinctively up a hill over and over again. And the reason why he did that was because the gods punished him for cheating death. He found a way to cheat death, and so he was cursed with an addiction to making himself suffer by always trying to pursue that effort to push the boulder up the hill. And no sooner than he got it to the top of the hill, it would break free and fall back down to the bottom again. And then, because that's what he did, he would go back to rolling the boulder up the hill. We do that, building things and building careers and trying to create something of immortality for ourselves. And the reality is we can't change the cycle of life. And the sooner we understand that and accept it, I think, the better because then we're going to be able to have a certain sense of peace. We're going to be able to understand intellectually that all is well in the world, even if it's not necessarily well for every single person in the world. So where does that leave us? Well, I don't know. I guess it leaves us sitting around here looking into a new year, understanding that some people are going to make it and some people won't, and we don't really know exactly where we're going to fall in all of that. But what was on my mind lately is the topic of fasting and prayer. And I'm not religious. I'm not really trying to make this about something religious, but if you really kind of get to the meat and potatoes of it, fasting is all about not consuming as much, and prayer is all about meditation. And I think that that's a good place to begin as we contemplate maybe our New Year's resolutions, or something a bit like a New Year's resolution. Maybe it's not something specific like you're going to do something and like go to the gym every single day. Maybe it's something more general, more of an outlook that you want to embrace. Or maybe it's something that you already have been working on that you want to do a better job of, and kind of take it to the next level moving forward, and increase the amount of momentum you have driving you in that new direction. But when we fast, we give up consumption. Now maybe that's less retail therapy and more saving your money. Maybe it's making wiser investments with your money. Maybe it's spending less time scrolling through things like Reddit and Facebook and stuff like that, and spending less time thinking about people who all have something to say but don't really have anything meaningful to add to your life. It's about giving up all of that noise, all of that stuff we always want to consume, we always want to get ourselves wrapped up in and involved with, and maybe even defined by, and instead to have a more meditative present experience, to control the narrative of our lives, so that we know that all of the things that we are doing, all of the things that we're spending our time on, are things to which we have given our consent. And the reality is there's a lot of things in life that aren't really anything we signed up for, anything that we said that's what we want to do. When you go to the water cooler and you have some kind of slanderous conversation about somebody, it's just idle conversation, making fun of somebody behind their back, or getting involved in some sort of a political conversation, which is just just ranting about something because that seems like the thing to do. All of those sorts of things are not really what you sat down and said, this is what I want to spend my life doing. It's just something you are doing, just like sitting there on your phone scrolling through some sort of a feed. You're not really doing anything you sat down and said, this is what I want to do. You're just on autopilot. You're making your way through life, and there's always going to be something there to take up your time, to consume your thoughts, to consume your mind, and to keep you distracted. And so for me, I think that's really what I want to kind of work on, to be more mindful, to be more concerted in the activities that I'm doing, to be a person who spends my days wholly invested in doing things which I've chosen to do, things that I want to do, and to give up some of the noise, some of the things that don't serve me, some of the things which feel familiar maybe, but they're not actually helpful to my personal growth, personal development, or sense of peace in my life. And I think that that's a good place to begin. We tend to be kind of cruel to people sometimes, or maybe we're just super hard on ourselves too. That's also a possibility. And usually the reason we do these things, the reason why we're always so determined to build our castle in the sky, the reason why we're so bent on trying to push that boulder up the hill, it's because we have failed to meditate on the truth of our life, the truth that we aren't assured anything, the truth that maybe in the great scheme of things, we're either just a small agent in a large world filled with randomness and chaos, or maybe that there is some sort of a great dev in the sky that wrote the programming of the game that we're playing, which we call life. And if that's the case, then maybe our lives are just a story that's already been written and we can't really control any of it. We just have the illusion of control. Sort of like playing Tomb Raider. I've been playing that game, and it's a very linear game where you're running along and you're going through different objectives, you're achieving different things, you're fighting different enemies, but it's always very clear that there's a path you're supposed to be followed, that you're following, and it's not really like it's an open world game where you just go anywhere and do whatever you want. It's always clear, even though it looks like it's an open world. It's designed to appear as if you have a lot of agency in the game. The reality is you really don't have much agency. It's all about a very linear path and projection from one event to the next. And that's actually what makes the game so much fun and so memorable, because each part of the experience is choreographed and designed, and it's sort of a walled garden. And that's what makes it special. But it's also not a game where you have a lot of free agency like you do in maybe MMO. I like MMOs because you can have this sense of just logging in and going wherever you want, doing whatever you want, and it all feels kind of random and endless in an MMO potentially. And then you have single player RPGs, which are oftentimes the opposite. They're not open at all. It's a closed channel that you navigate through. And so I guess in life, we always have that sort of a debate about whether life is something where we have a lot of free agency, or if we are sort of on a predestined path, and the jury's still out on it, But either way, whether you believe that God wrote your life story in the stars, or if you believe that it's all just random, that doesn't change the fact that we're all just small specks, and we're a little bit of stardust in the great scheme of things. So why would we really worry so much about whether we accomplish enough? Why would we worry about whether other people are good enough? Why would we worry about things that frustrate us? There really isn't any logic in that. It doesn't make sense, because the only reason why we would punish ourselves for things or punish other people for things is if we have some sort of a misguided belief that somehow we can cheat death, and somehow we can reach something that's equivalent to immortality. But the reality is, whether you win the lottery tomorrow or not, the sun's going to come up and the earth is going to spin just the same. And at the end of our lives, whether we're great or small, we will be largely forgotten. Perhaps some shadow of who we were will be remembered. Perhaps there are some things we can do to create a little bit of immortality by sharing our stories, sharing our experiences. Like cavemen, we can go write our name on that wall in some sort of crude chalk, so that future spelunkers will come into the caves we once dwelt in and see the primitive pictures of our old lives. Or in the modern case, maybe we can have a blog or a YouTube channel, or write a book, or publish a story, or something like that. So that's fine. But really doesn't change the fact that life is not really ours to command. It's only a little bit of time that's ours to borrow. And when all is said and done, we're just dust, and we're going back to dust. So meditate on things which are true. Give up things which just add noise without meaning. And remember to be kind to others, whether you're with them or not with them, and be kind to yourself as well. And as for New Year's resolutions, things that maybe I want to do, well, I've thought I'd like to write a book one day, and the more time passes, the more I realize life's filled with long days and short decades. And when it's all over, you look back and your life, well, your entire life will seem like it went by in the blink of an eye. So it's important not to put off all of those things that you think of doing one day to forever, because forever comes faster than you might realize. You know, I like sometimes to play games like Civilization, those turn-based strategy games where you build a city and you try to level up your military and level up your research tree and develop your technologies and be the first one to launch a spaceship, or to win the game through some other sort of a end game milestone. And what's stood out to me in a lot of those games is the temptation is to start hitting skip turn, because there's nothing really to do in that specific turn that you're in. So you just skip the turn, and then you're waiting until however many turns when the next development will happen. Maybe a city will finish building a wonder or building a building, or maybe you will research a new technology which will give you something new to do, or any number of things. But the temptation is to keep skipping turns. But if you're not careful, what you can do is you can skip so many turns that when you actually achieve the goal that you wanted to achieve, it's too late in the game, and now you're behind the times. You've let the game pass you by, because while you were skipping turns, the other players were actually progressing. So be careful about putting things off for a decade that you could do today. Be careful about putting off things that maybe you know you ought to do because you'll have next year to do them. The reality is you might not have next year. So if this is the only year we have, then what are we going to do with it? What if we don't even have the whole year? Then what then? Well, there's a lot of petty and trivial things. You know, I think there's RPGs in my Steam library that I'd like to finish playing. There's gaming experiences I would like to have. There's all sorts of things that I would like to maybe do. But how easy is it for me to pull out my phone and then scroll through social media instead? And next thing you know, I've spent a couple hours watching short videos when I could have been making progress on the main quest line in one of my favorite RPGs, or building a city in one of my favorite city building games, or exploring the world in Flight Simulator or something like that. Or to lay aside gaming for a minute, maybe taking time to connect with somebody, or call somebody, or try to stay in touch with someone. And that leads me to another thing I think is probably a good thing to talk about while we're on it. And that is, have a good attitude toward life, because the reality is you have the option to be kind and happy about the life that you're given, to view life as a blessing, or to have that down in the dumps, frustrated, I'm a victim kind of an attitude. And the truth of the matter is we all feel like a victim sometimes, all right? Like there's no getting around it. Like, so you can say, you know, like somebody once said in response to one of my videos, they said, it sounds like you are suffering from some kind of depression or something like that. And maybe that was just because of the tone of the video. Well, that wasn't really the tone I was trying to strike up, but you know what? I think that if you're honest with people about how you feel about life, They will think that you're struggling with depression. And the reason why is because everybody's struggling with something like depression. It's just most people don't talk about it. Most people don't want to be honest, because it takes courage to be honest and to face the fact that sometimes you feel alone, and sometimes you feel hopeless, and sometimes you feel like life is a lost cause. But the reality is, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're facing, no matter what you're feeling, you're not alone. There's other people who are experiencing things which are very similar to what you're experiencing. It's just they're not there to tell you about it. They're not there right by your side to lick their wounds along with you. But they are there. There are other people who are going through the same feelings, the same experiences. So just know that you're not alone. And on that topic, also, I think be honest, be courageous. It's okay to tell the truth. We live in a time where it's so tempting to think about what the expedient thing to say or do is so much that you don't have, it doesn't even enter your mind that you could just tell the truth. You could just say, this is where I stand. This is what I believe. This is what I think. You could tell somebody the truth and not worry about the consequences. Maybe if we thought that our lives were going to be shorter, we would do that too. If you thought you only had a year left, then would you always play it safe, or would you maybe be a little bit more honest? So if we could take away anything, maybe let's try to be more honest as we go into the new year. Try to have the courage not to always play it safe, not to always say what you think people want you to say. Maybe tell the truth so that people can see an authentic version of you, because authenticity accomplishes more than something that sounds good but means nothing. That's one reason why I like a medium like YouTube, for example, stands out, because everything I watch on YouTube, whether it's meaningful or whether it's foolish, it's something I've chosen to engage with. So there's content creators who I really enjoy because something about who they are or what they bring to the table is meaningful content to me. And I know that anything that I share out into the world, if people watch it and they like it, well, the reason why I have exposure is because other people choose to engage with that content. And we don't have that experience on some other platforms like Facebook, where it's really very much about people measuring up to each other. It's not about people giving consent to the narrative they're subjected to. It's all about people judging each other. It's about people snooping in each other's business. It gives the appearance of being very personal, while it also is very removed from physical connection with people. So yeah, that's not to say, like, it's fine. If you want to be on Facebook, go be on Facebook. I'm not saying you shouldn't be. I'm just saying that there's so many things in life where it's fake, and we always hide behind a facade. You get somebody in front of you and they're super nice. You put them on the internet behind a screen and they'll say things that are cruel and ghost you, right? So that's how life works. But if we can be more honest, it's going to be good for us. It's going to be good for other people. And that's true whether you're going to live for 6 months or if you're going to live for another 60 years. So there you have it. You're not alone. Remember, we're all in this together in the end. And as for goals, if you live every day as if it's your last, sooner or later it will be. So let's just go ahead and do that. And do things that we choose to do. They don't have to be meaningful things. They don't even have to be big things. They don't have to be epic things, because the truth of the matter is there's always going to be epic, important people doing amazing things in the world. You don't have to bear the weight of all of that on your shoulder. It's okay just to be a random normie, just living your life. But don't do it with bitterness in your heart. Don't do it with bitterness and anger toward other people. It's okay if you want to watch the news and see what's going on in the world. I like to watch and see what's going on in the world, but don't take it to heart so much that it defines you and you become toxic and you become angry and you become one of those keyboard warriors that's raging about everything all the time. Don't be that. I think if we understood how insignificant we are, and if we understood that we're just a small speck of dust that's going to go back to the dust, well, we would have no reason in the world to be cruel and judgmental toward other people. So let's just remember that, and try not to be a person who is toxic. You know, it's tempting. I will say that. It's tempting to be toxic in a passive way. It's tempting to rage about things. It's tempting to say things negatively at people's expense. It's tempting to look at life through the lens of glass half empty. It's tempting to be a person who is frustrated all the time when things don't go your way. But you also have a choice. Every day we have a choice to be happy. We have a choice to be noble. We have a choice to be a person who's lighthearted in the face of any adversity and to be humble in the face of any success. And we all know how to do it because we all know what it's like to be around somebody that builds us up. We know what it's like to be around somebody who's encouraging, somebody who's good-natured, somebody who's positive, somebody who makes us feel better about ourselves, somebody who makes life feel like it's richer. And it's not about being the best or the brightest. It's just about being a person who is the kind of person you would want to be around. And maybe that's the test of life, that in order for us to have the things that we really want, we have to first prove that we are able and willing to be good stewards in the absence of those things. You see, you have to have a good attitude when you don't have the blessings before you'll have those things added unto you. There's a story of Job in the Bible, and he was afflicted. He had sores all over him. He was, I think, a leper for a period of time. I don't know. He was very ill, though, and he was ill with something that was very miserable, a skin disease that just made him super miserable all the time. And everyone would come, and all of his friends would say, Job is going to denounce God. He's going to stop praising God. He's going to hate God for allowing this terrible thing to happen to him. But it turns out he refused to do that. He continued to give thanks to God for the life that he had. He continued to be a person of gratitude. He continued to try to live his life with good vibes, whether life was treating him fair or not. And that was how he passed the test. You see, he wound up, after he lost everything, he lost his family, he lost his money, he lost his health, he lost all of it. But see, when he refused to stop praising God through all of it, then God gave him more wealth and love and success than he ever would have had before. And life is kind of like that, I think. Sometimes we have to learn how to give praise and gratitude in the absence of light before the new sun rises. So let's go into the new year with a spirit of gratitude, with a spirit of wanting what's best for other people, with a spirit of kindness toward others, and forgiveness for ourselves too. I saw a meme. It was a funny one. And it was like this. There's this girl, little girl, went into her mother's bedroom and said, "Mother, I would like to sleep in your bed with you because there's a monster in the closet who is going to come get me." And her mother said, "No, you cannot. You cannot come sleep in my bed with me, because if I let you come sleep in my bed, then the monster might follow you out of the closet, and it might come and attack me, and I can't risk that. So you can't come in here because I can't risk that you bring that monster in to bed with me." So, you know, that's kind of a funny story, but maybe there's a lesson there. Sometimes we push other people out because we're so afraid that they will somehow mess up our lives. We're afraid that their demons will follow them into our lives. We're afraid if we give a little bit of our time to somebody, we're not going to get our time back. We're afraid if we show mercy to others, mercy won't be shown to us. We start to want to live on our own little island, self-contained, selfish. But that's not a good place to be, because if we're not careful, we can wind up sort of toxic in our own little echo chambers, always building up walls to protect ourselves from enemies, both real and also enemies imagined that don't even necessarily exist. It's like looking at social media these days. I see, there was a lot of concern about drones flying over New Jersey lately, but then that kind of died out. People stopped talking so much about that, and now I see on Google Trends people are thinking more about mysterious fog, which is rolling in over the eastern United States. And some people think that it's the government doing something, or they think that the fog is toxic, or they think it was some sort of an aerosol that was sprayed and it was part of a nefarious conspiracy theory. Who knows? I'm not going to even say it's not possible. But when I see somebody posting a video of what looks like common drizzle and somehow elevating it to proof of a government conspiracy to kill them, well, I gotta say, that's a little bit far out there. But what happens when we live our lives like that? When we start to see ghosts in every corner, when we're always afraid of that demon in the closet, and we're actually so afraid of that demon in the closet that we're afraid to let anyone else in our life either, because we think maybe they have demons in their closet too. Turns out in the end, you can wind up being prepared for everything except for the things that really make life meaningful. And in the end, if that's true, you're just like Sisyphus pushing up that round boulder up to the top of the hill just so it can roll down, and doing that over and over again. Life, it turns out, it's not about money, it's not about authority, it's not about being super prepared, it's not about any of that. Yes, being a good steward in life, that's an important thing. You don't want to be underwater in credit card debt and hundreds of pounds overweight, just ailing on every front. No, don't be that person. But life is also about living. And there should never be a day in your life when you don't spend your day doing things that you want to do. Doing things meaningfully and putting your whole self into whatever it is you're doing. And if you look back over the last year and there have been times in your life when you thought, well, maybe I'll just fast forward through the boring parts, Well, let's make a pact on the first day of the year that we're going to do the very best we can to stop fast forwarding through the boring parts of life and to make the entirety of this new year a time of kindness, forgiveness, patience, and a time of doing interesting things with a spirit of gratitude in our hearts. As always, wherever you find yourself, good luck on your adventure. Till next time, thanks for watching.